Attack, attack, attack. Tadej Pogacar just cannot help himself. He attacks, but with fruitless results. Tries to drop Jonas Vingegaard today, trying to make up 2 minutes and 22 seconds, but to no avail. This is the Sports Psychology Podcast with Michael Seeley for today, July 19th. Stage 16 of the Tour de France from Carcassonne to Foix in the foothills of the Pyrenees. 2 climbs today. Nothing like the next couple of days coming up were true mountain stages, but a couple of significant climbs here today. Let's get right to the action. There was an early breakaway of about 28 riders. Had a couple of Jumbo-Visma riders in that breakaway. Vingegaard and Jumbo-Visma feeling pretty confident. They have strength in numbers, and they allowed some of their riders to get up the road and not protect Vingegaard. Pogacar loses one of his domestiques today. Marc Soler, a pretty strong rider, got dropped today and actually lost a lot of time and missed what's called the time cut. And Pogacar loses a pretty strong lieutenant there. So let's go to the head of the peloton. We still have this 20-man breakaway that's starting to get split up by these climbs today, and that splits into a couple of smaller groups. Now, this remnants of that breakaway are about 8 minutes ahead of the general classification group with Pogacar and Vingegaard, and they're content to have those riders out there in the breakaway because they're not really a threat to the overall general classification. So back in the Pogacar-Vingegaard group, you have Pogacar attacking, testing Vingegaard to see if Vingegaard is somehow tired, and he's not. So with about 50 kilometers to go up the first major climb, Pogacar attacks pretty brutally quickly. Like you can see him, really punchy attack, and Vingegaard bridges right up right away. No teammates of Vingegaard have to do work for him. Vingegaard's right on Pogacar's wheel. 2 kilometers later, Pogacar attacks again. Vingegaard right there again, shadowing him. So at this point, you would think that Pogacar would kind of get the idea that, look, Vingegaard has it today. I'm not going to attack anymore. If I attack, I might get counterattacked by the Jumbo-Visma team. But no, that's not Pogacar's personality. That's not his style. He attacks yet again. At the very summit of that first climb, he attacks and basically tries to surprise Jonas Vingegaard on the downhill. So he attacks at the summit and just hammers this downhill, trying to drop Jonas Vingegaard. Again, Vingegaard right there, shadowing him right there on his wheel, descending very skillfully, the two of them. So I've mentioned this before, but Tadej Pogacar has this style of being really aggressive. That's like his default. He feels very comfortable being on the attack. He doesn't feel so comfortable playing defense, and really what he needs to do is play defense. If you try twice to attack somebody as hard as you can, and they're still right there, you're probably not going to drop them on the downhill. Like it's probably not going to happen, and really not worth the risk of maybe going in hot to a corner and crashing. So have a little more commentary on Pogacar's personality in a bit, but let's get back to the race. We got about 50K to go. Remnants of that earlier breakaway are getting absorbed back into that general classification group, but you still have some riders out there, not a threat to the GC, who are allowed to get away. And one of them is the Canadian Hugo Houle, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, took advantage of the splintered breakaway and took off by himself up the final climb of the day and put in just an incredible effort, descending alone into the city of Foix to take the win. So that's the first Canadian win since Steve Bauer in 1988. So Canadians are pretty stoked about this. And it's also a very poignant win today. Hugo Houle dedicated the race to his late brother, who passed away, I believe, 10 years ago. And so that was pretty emotional. So it's great to see somebody win a race that way. And it was just really wonderful to watch. So let's go back to the group, which is about 8 minutes behind the Pogacar-Vingegaard group. At this point, Pogacar loses Rafa Majka to a mechanical issue. So this is another lieutenant of Pogacar on the Emirates team, Rafa Majka, who's just really strong rider, doing a lot of great work in this tour. He's setting the pace, keeping things steady so no one attacks Pogacar, as a lieutenant should do. When he has a mechanical, his chain snaps. And that doesn't really look good on TV, that your that your sponsor, or your mechanic is maybe not doing his job. So that was unfortunate for Pogacar. And right after that, what happened was that the American Sepp Kuss, who's having a phenomenal tour, young phenom, just really talented rider. He rides for Jumbo-Visma, rides for Jonas Vingegaard. Sepp Kuss is now put in charge of setting the pace and even turns up the heat a little bit more. And Pogacar at this point looks tired. Honestly, he looks tired. And so Sepp Kuss is leading the pace, keeping it high for Jonas Vingegaard. Things basically stay together. Pogacar does not attack, which leads me to believe that he couldn't attack. I think that the pace set by Sepp Kuss was significant enough that Pogacar could not even attack. And even after the finish in the interview, Pogacar mentions how strong Sepp Kuss is in setting this pace. And if you look at Sepp Kuss, he's built like a climber. He's just perfect for climbing. So at this point, they all descend into Foix, the finish line, together. They go over the top of this climb, kind of with a détente. They basically realize that, Pogacar realizes at this point he's not going to drop Jonas Vingegaard. Vingegaard plays it safe, doesn't try to attack Pogacar, and they all descend into Foix together to end the stage. Really no change in the general classification, the top three. A couple of riders drop back. Romain Bardet loses some time today, drops to 9th place. Nairo Quintana moves up a notch, I believe, into to 4th place. And so that's kind of exciting. But between Vingegaard and Pogacar, the time gap is still the same. And Geraint Thomas of the Ineos team is 2:43 back, so he's right near Pogacar. He could move up into 2nd place possibly. That's really tight in the top three there. So let me talk a little bit about Pogacar's personality here. I've said this before, but the guy loves to attack, and he's been so dominant the last couple of years. I think he's kind of realizing that dominant burn all my matches kind of style just is not going to work long term throughout his career. Jonas Vingegaard is very strong this year. You're always going to have up and coming riders too. So I think Pogacar needs to change his riding style. I think he needs to be a little more conservative and really understand that he's not superhuman, that if he keeps attacking with this type of bravado style that he has, it can backfire. It has backfired already in the Tour de France earlier. We saw that, where he got counterattacked and just really beat up by Jumbo-Visma. So Pogacar needs to chill. He needs to be really calculated. And what he needs to do, honestly, is certainly attack again, but not this sort of wasteful attacks where, he attacked 3 times today with really, it didn't look like a lot of strategy. He just kind of went for it. I think he needs to just get that timing perfectly and wait to attack, especially on the next couple of days in the Pyrenees are going to be brutal. This is probably the hardest climbing in the Tour coming up, really intense stuff. If Pogacar can be patient and wait until the very last climb to just brutally attack Vingegaard, I think he can gain some time because Pogacar's attacks are so punchy. He gets instant gaps. Vingegaard's attacks are a little bit smoother. They're not quite as jumpy. And so Pogacar, if he's smart, he can just wait until that final climb, bide his time, kind of bite his tongue and jump there. And he might be able to get 30 seconds. But he's got a rough road ahead of him. I don't know if Pogacar can make up 2 minutes, 22 seconds over a very strong Vingegaard and a Jumbo-Visma team, which is looking still very strong. My money is on Vingegaard winning the Tour this year. I think that's the way it looks. It's possible that Vingegaard could just have a bad day. That can always happen, right? So you never know. But it's not looking good for Pogacar unless he can do some more calculated moves. So that is it for today in the Tour de France. Tune in tomorrow and especially the day after tomorrow, which has some of the most brutal climbs in the Tour.